reading through your book again last night, and it was interesting the comment about, you could do the paradiddles and the complicated jazz bits, but you didn't feel the need to do them all the time, because sometimes rock just needs a straightforward, solid 4/4, 4 on the floor, and it's nice to have the ability to do both, but it doesn't always fit.
It's about a feel.
Yeah.
If with jazz, it does give you the opportunity to use the technique that you've practiced for years. That's why I like playing jazz. If I'm going to be honest, I have to say jazz is my favourite music.
It's more fulfilling, I guess, as a player.
Yeah, big band jazz. I love it. But rock has its merits as well, and that is the art of being a sensitive musician who's knowing what to do and where to put things in and leave things out at the right time, I suppose. Yeah. And for me, it just came very naturally. It's not something I ever learned. It was there with me when I first started. And the same with Jim Page, you see. Jimmy was exactly the same. He knew exactly where to leave things out and where to suddenly leap in and do something. And he might only play 4 or 5 notes, but those 5 notes would be so positive and add so much to that recording. And that's why guys used him, producers used him, because he had the right feel for it. He wasn't sitting there making hundreds of magnificent runs all over the place just to show them, look, I'm Jimmy Page, look what I can do. He didn't do that. He did his job as a session musician.
No, I can imagine. So what were some of the big groups that offered you drumming jobs that you thought about and didn't take up because the session world was so lucrative or convenient?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I was never really offered big jobs with big groups. I mean, even when Jimmy Page formed Led Zeppelin, or started to... I think Led Zepp, as far as I know, came from really a guy called Peter Grant, who managed the band and was a very good manager for these guys. You know, I mean, he wouldn't
looked after them,
he wouldn't take stick from any record companies or anything. They were his boys and he was going to look after them. And Jimmy and I were very, very close friends. We used to mix socially outside of recordings as well. We were good mates. Jimmy stayed at my home many times. If he was on a session next day, we were both on a session. He used to live down in Epsom, so instead of coming up from Epsom, he'd come back with me the night before, stay overnight at my pad, and then we would schlap on out to the studios for the next session. I always found Jimmy to be quite a shy guy, actually. He's a very unassuming person, very down to earth, you know. But at the time when he came to choose his musicians, and he was perfectly right, he didn't actually offer me the job with Zepp, because he knew, I think he knew in his head what sort of sound he wanted, and I wouldn't have been a heavy enough drummer for that.
Well, he was looking at Keith Moon initially working with Jeff Beck and John Entwistle, so that would have been you know, a heavy setup.
That's right. But I think I probably wasn't quite heavy enough, whereas John Bonham was one of the new heavy breed of guys that used 2 oak trees for drumsticks, and could play as well. A great player. And Jimmy made the right decision on that, absolutely. I would have loved to have played and been part of Led Zepp, but I didn't get the offer, and I never ever got offered from other groups as well. And that was mainly because of the fact I was a studio musician. Sure. You know, people didn't look on me as a band musician. I'd already been through that. I'd been with Marty Wilde and Joe Brown and all those sort of pop stars in the early 60s, and then progressed from that into the session work, which was well, it was supposed to be one step up, I suppose. Although I did miss being on the road and the fun of being on the road and the discipline on sessions, of course. Musicians don't like discipline. Hated it.
Not famous for it, are you?
No, we're not.
No.
Yeah, you know, I don't want to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Even today, and I'm 67 now, I still don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning for anything. I certainly had more fun on the road than I did on sessions, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But sessions was where the money was and where you had security.
Yeah.
Once you got in the session scene, and it was closed doors. And initially, the old, experienced players who'd been around for years, they didn't talk to Jimmy Page and I for a very long time. You know, because they didn't like the fact that young guys were coming in on their scene.
Yeah.
But once they knew that we could play and we weren't really a threat, they were all right. They were fine then. I mean, it was only a matter of time before Jimmy made it big anyway in some way or another, because he just had that talent. The talent was there, and it was just looking for the right place and the right person to exploit that.
Yeah.
And he found it with Peter Grant.
Yeah. Who really looked after him.
Oh, fantastic. John Paul Jones came in on sessions and did quite a lot of work as well. I don't know whether he was introduced into the session scene by Jimmy Page, because I didn't really know John that well, because he was a very quiet character as well. Yeah. He sort of drifted in, smiled, said hello, did his job and drifted off again. None of us knew really. I mean, to be very honest with you, had we realised then that the sort of music history we were making at that time, I think we would have been a bit more businesslike about it and made sure that we were protected for the future financially. When you're doing sessions, I mean, I can't speak for the other guys, but most of us seem to be, you know, we weren't starstruck. We weren't those sort of musicians. Because we were working with Tom Jones, Petula Clark, PJ Proby all in one day, meant nothing to us. They were just singers.
That was your day
we were
job,
just doing our job.
Yeah.
That was all it was. I have never been impressed by stars. I've never been interested. That's why I get a lot of people asking me, you must have loads and loads of pictures of you with various stars. I haven't. I haven't got one, I don't think, because I never bothered with all that.
Yeah.
I was there to do my job, play drums. There were certain ones that I enjoyed working with more than others. I used to love working with PJ Proby because he was such a great character and a good singer.
Yeah.
And if you listen to, I think it's Hold Me, that's Jimmy Page playing harmonica on that.
What was your favourite Led Zeppelin track?
My favourite Led Zeppelin track, without a doubt, is Kashmir. It's got that incessant drive to it. And if you listen to the chords, it's actually almost like the James Bond theme chords. It's really a powerful piece, and there's some really interesting time signatures going on there, and John Bonham's just ploughing heavily on there. He doesn't do a great deal on it, but what he does is absolutely right. And it is a fascinating track to listen to. My second favourite, I suppose, is Stairway to Heaven. Those are the two tracks, and I've got to be honest, and I know Jimmy will go, you monster. I have never been into Led Zepp. I've never really listened to Led Zeppelin that much. I don't know